The call came at 3:42 p.m. I remember the time exactly because I was still at work, halfway through my last inspection on a roof that smelled like tar and sunburn. The number was familiar, but I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. Alyssa, my wife's younger sister. Eli, she said, barely above a whisper, I need you to come home. Right now. There was no hesitation in her voice. No room for questions. Just that tone. Serious. Unshaking. It cut through me deeper than sirens ever had. I asked, is it Ashley? She paused, then sighed. You just need to see for yourself. I told my foreman I had an emergency and hit the road like I had fire in my rearview. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was alert, something in my gut tightening with each mile. Ashley and I had been married for 6 years. Not perfect years, but not broken either. Or so I thought. She was sweet, calm, the kind of woman who packed my lunch with stupid little notes, who folded my shirts even when she was mad at me. We had no kids yet, just a dog, Murphy, and a list of names for a future we kept pushing, till we're ready. But lately, I'd felt adrift. You know the kind, where words become shorter, kisses become mechanical, and time alone becomes time apart. She blamed work stress. I blamed myself. I even offered to go to counseling. She said she just needed time. Now, Alyssa was telling me she needed none. I pulled into the driveway 20 minutes earlier than Ashley expected. Her car was there. So was mine, parked from the morning. I'd carpooled to work. The house looked quiet. Ordinary. Too ordinary. I noticed the blinds in the kitchen window weren't fully closed, just slightly tilted. And that's when I saw it. Ashley, standing barefoot by the stove, stirring something with one hand, while her other rested on the chest of the man behind her. He leaned in, too close. Smiling. Confident. Like he'd been there before. Like he belonged. And he did. Because that was Aaron. My best friend since college. My jaw tightened. My hands trembled, but not from rage, from clarity. A kind I hadn't felt in years. They laughed. And I knew, this wasn't the first time. I didn't move at first. Just stood there on the edge of the porch, watching my best friend run his fingers through my wife's hair like it was some kind of inside joke between them. Her laugh, light, playful, real, cut through me sharper than any blade. I hadn't heard that laugh in months. And now I knew why. They thought they were safe. Thought I was still knee-deep in attic insulation somewhere across town. Hell, Ashley even sent me a text 10 minutes before I got home. Don't forget to grab eggs later. Love you. That message still sat unread in my pocket. I could have stormed in right then and there, thrown the door open, flipped the kitchen table, broken Aaron's jaw with a single swing. But I didn't. I wasn't going to give them that. Rage would have made this easier for them, turned me into the problem, the unstable husband who overreacted. No, I stayed still, quiet, just like Ashley had always claimed she wanted from me. Instead, I reached into my pocket and opened my phone's camera. One quick shot. Blinds cracked just enough. Their faces were clear. Her hand still resting over his heart. His lips near her ear. Freeze-framed betrayal. That was all I needed. I backed away from the porch like a man defusing a bomb. Every part of me wanted to kick the door in and shatter their little fantasy. But I wasn't here to make a scene. I was here to understand exactly how deep the rot went. I walked down the street, rounded the corner, and sat in my truck with the windows down. My phone buzzed again, Alyssa this time. Did you see? I texted back, yes. A few seconds passed. I'm sorry. I couldn't keep pretending. You didn't deserve this. I stared at that message longer than I should have. Alyssa had always been quiet around me, polite, supportive in a way that didn't draw attention. She was the opposite of Ashley, no drama, no performance. But this message, it was real. I called her. Eli, she answered softly. You knew how long? I asked. A beat. Since March, she admitted. It's been going on longer than you think. He's not the first. My throat dried out. Wait, what? I only told you because I couldn't sleep anymore, she continued. Watching you take her out to dinner, buy her flowers, while her voice cracked, while she was making you into a joke behind your back. I pressed my fingers against my eyes, trying to hold the room steady. How many others, Alyssa? Silence. Then, 2 that I know of. Aaron makes 3. I didn't speak. I just stared through the windshield at the sunlight bleeding through the trees, wondering how much of my life had been fiction. She said she was unhappy, Alyssa added quietly. But she never tried to fix it. She just took the easy way out. I nodded slowly. Not easy anymore. What are you going to do? My voice was flat, cold. Watch her fall apart. I stayed in my truck for nearly an hour, just staring at the picture I'd taken. I zoomed in on their hands. Their faces. That smirk Aaron had, the one he always wore when he thought he had the upper hand. I used to admire it in college, thought it meant confidence. Now it just looked like cowardice wrapped in cologne and cheap charm. Ashley's smile though, that was the part that hit hardest. It wasn't guilty. It wasn't nervous. It was free. Like whatever part of her I'd loved for 6 years had already packed up and left months ago, and I'd just been living with the shell. I couldn't walk back into that house yet. I needed a plan. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. I sure as hell wasn't going to give either of them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. So I drove. First stop, the bank. I still had access to our joint accounts. I'd been the one handling bills, mortgage, insurance. Ashley liked things handled. So I made a few transfers. Split what was fair, moved the rest to a private account under my name only. Shut off the auto-pays tied to her phone, her subscriptions, her gym. If she wanted independence so bad, I figured she could start learning how to fund it herself. Next, the lawyer. I didn't have one yet, but I knew who to call. Uncle Mason, family friend. Tough, direct, doesn't waste time on sympathy. Told him I'd be in the next day with everything I had, texts, photos, dates. Said the words like I'd been rehearsing them for weeks. And maybe I had. After that, I drove to Alyssa's apartment. She opened the door before I knocked. Like she'd been standing there, waiting, listening for my footsteps in the hallway. You okay? She asked. No, I said honestly. But I'm steady. She nodded and stepped aside to let me in. The place smelled like cinnamon, candles, probably. Everything was clean, organized, like she didn't have space in her life for chaos. I sat on the couch while she poured tea into 2 mismatched mugs. Her hand trembled slightly as she handed me mine. You didn't have to tell me, I said after a long pause. I know, she whispered. But I couldn't lie for her anymore. I couldn't look you in the eye knowing what she was doing. She sat beside me, not too close, but not distant either. The silence between us felt heavier now, not awkward, just full. Weighted with truth, and something else neither of us wanted to name just yet. She ever mention me? I asked. Alyssa looked away. Only that you'd never leave her. That you were too loyal for your own good. I laughed, sharp and hollow. She was right. Until now. Alyssa looked at me then, her eyes soft but sad. I'm sorry, Eli. You deserved more than her. I met her gaze. Yeah, I think I always did. I didn't go home that night. I sat on Alyssa's couch long after the tea had gone cold, watching the clock tick past midnight while my mind tried to piece together what had actually happened to my marriage. Not just the betrayal, but the erosion, slow, silent, and somehow invisible until it collapsed all at once. Alyssa offered to let me stay, even pulled out the old air mattress she used for guests. I should have said no. I didn't. I wasn't there to feel something romantic, that wasn't what this was. It was safety, quiet, the first space I'd been in that didn't feel rigged to explode. We didn't talk much more. Just shared the silence like a blanket, neither of us reaching for anything that didn't already feel earned. By morning, I'd made a decision. It was time to go back. Not to forgive, not to talk, just to look my wife in the eye and see how well she lied when she knew the curtain had been pulled back. The house was still. Murphy didn't bark when I opened the door, probably because Ashley had locked him in the bedroom. She did that sometimes when she didn't want to be disturbed. I walked into the kitchen like a ghost, half expecting to find her and Aaron still tangled in the lie. But she was alone, standing at the sink, staring out the window, a mug in her hand. She didn't flinch when I walked in, didn't jump or spin around. She just sighed, like she'd been waiting for the final scene. You're home early, she said. I dropped my keys on the counter. Not early enough. Silence. Then she turned, slowly. Her eyes were red. But there weren't tears, not the kind that came from pain. More like exhaustion. Or maybe from realizing the jig was up. I assume Alyssa told you, she said flatly. Not everything. Just enough. She nodded, set the mug down. Then I guess there's no point in lying. Nope. We stood there, the kitchen too bright for how dark everything felt. You're mad, she said. Not a question. I'm done, I corrected. She swallowed hard. I never wanted it to go this far. You just wanted to keep playing until someone folded. I didn't think you'd ever find out. I shook my head. You said you were unhappy. Why not just tell me? Because I didn't want to be the bad guy, she snapped. I wanted you to walk away first. So I could say you gave up. So I didn't have to feel guilty. I blinked. That was it. That was the truth. Not passion. Not love gone wrong. Just cowardice. I stepped back. You don't have to feel guilty, Ashley. You don't have to feel anything at all. She looked at me, something in her cracking. So that's it? Yeah, I said, walking toward the door. That's it. And then I left, not because I was weak, but because she didn't deserve to see how strong I still was. I didn't look back when I left that house. Not at the porch, not at the kitchen window, not even at Murphy scratching the glass from behind the door. I'd be back for him later. He didn't choose the mess he was caught in. But Ashley, she could sit in it. I drove until the sun was high enough to feel like it was trying to burn through me. The radio was off. I didn't need noise. My thoughts were already too loud. By 9:30, I was back at the law office. Mason had been waiting. He took one look at me and nodded. You're not here for advice anymore, he said. No, I replied. I'm here for action. We spent 2 hours building the file, photos, witness accounts, timelines, bank transactions. Alyssa had even offered a written statement, and Mason said it might hold more weight than I realized. Siblings don't usually turn on each other unless something's really broken. She's got no leg to stand on if this goes to court, he said, flipping through the documents. Especially if we can prove infidelity with dates. I want the house, I said. You'll get it. And I want her gone before the end of the month. His smile was grim. She'll fold fast. Women like her don't like mess once it's public. I left his office lighter than I came in, but still far from free. Truth is, even when the war ends, the wreckage doesn't clean itself. That night, I came back for Murphy. The lights were off when I pulled up. Her car was gone. I didn't know if she left to cry or to escape again, but I didn't care. I still had a key. I went in, grabbed his leash, his bed, the stupid basket of chew toys she always said was too cluttered for the living room. Murphy wagged his tail like nothing had changed. Dogs are like that. Loyal, simple, honest. Everything she wasn't. As I walked out, I noticed a yellow envelope on the counter. My name. Her handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I waited until I was back at Alyssa's. Murphy curled up on the floor, breathing steady, already asleep. I sat on the couch, unfolded the flap, and pulled out a single piece of paper. I'm sorry I became someone you had to recover from. That was it. No explanation. No promises. Just a sentence written in ink that had bled slightly at the corners, like even the paper knew it was too late. I folded it once, slid it into my jacket pocket, and leaned back. Alyssa walked in from the kitchen, 2 glasses of water in hand. You okay? She asked. No, I said. But I'm done bleeding for someone who never bandaged me back. She didn't say anything. Just handed me the glass, sat down beside me, and let the quiet settle. For the first time in weeks, it didn't feel empty. It felt clean. The days that followed felt strange, not sad, not angry, just hollow in the kind of way that sneaks up on you. Like you're walking through the shell of a house you once called home, and you're not sure if it's haunted or just finally empty. Ashley didn't fight the divorce. Not once. Her lawyer emailed Mason the next day, said she was willing to cooperate in exchange for privacy. No court battle. No drawn-out depositions. No teary breakdowns. She just backed out. That told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't guilt. It was strategy. She wanted to cut ties and rebuild without noise. Keep her image intact. Maybe start fresh with Aaron or whoever else she had waiting in the wings. Fine by me. She got her quiet exit. I got everything else. The house. The dog. My name. My peace. Funny thing is, I didn't feel like I won. There was no champagne moment. No victory lap. Just long nights on Alyssa's couch, paperwork stacked in front of me, and Murphy's head resting on my foot like a reminder that someone still believed I was worth sticking beside. Alyssa kept her distance at first. Not cold. Not distant. Just respectful. She'd check in, make food, walk Murphy when I needed space. She never said too much. But sometimes when I caught her looking at me, eyes soft, guarded, I could tell she carried more guilt than she should have. One night, I finally said it. You didn't betray me, Alyssa. She paused mid-step in the hallway. I didn't stop it either. You didn't owe me that. She did. A slow breath left her lungs, and she leaned against the wall. I just kept thinking, what if I said something sooner? What if I hadn't let her pull me into the lies? You weren't the liar, I said. You were just stuck between blood and truth. She walked over, sat down on the floor next to the couch, her back to the cushions, knees pulled up. I've always admired you, you know, she said. Even before all this. I looked at her. Why? Because you never changed. You didn't shift with the wind like she did. You didn't perform. You were just, you. I wanted to thank her, but I didn't have the words. Instead, I reached down and touched her hand, just for a second. She didn't pull away. We stayed like that for a while, quiet, present, no rush to label anything, just two people in the rubble of the same storm, figuring out where the ground still held. Later that night, I took Murphy out back. He sniffed around, chased a squirrel, then flopped onto the grass like life had gone on just fine. And maybe it had. Because some people break you just to see if they can. Others stay to help rebuild what's left. By the end of the week, the papers were signed. Ashley never showed up. Her signature came through a scanned PDF, clean and impersonal, like canceling a gym membership or unsubscribing from a mailing list. No call, no goodbye, just a transaction. That's all we'd ever been to her in the end, a phase she'd outgrown. I didn't tell anyone at first, not even my parents. I couldn't stand the thought of explaining the whole thing, of watching the disappointment spread across their faces like spilled wine on white carpet. I'd already cleaned up enough of her mess. Instead, I focused on getting my house back in order. The first thing I did was repaint the bedroom, took down the old photos, replaced the mattress, donated half her clothes. Everything that smelled like her or reminded me of mornings she didn't earn. I didn't burn it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Alyssa offered to help. Not in a "let me fix you" way, but in a "let's make space for peace" kind of way. She brought over boxes, helped pack, kept the music low and the coffee hot. She didn't ask questions, didn't force small talk. She just moved beside me like she'd always belonged in the silence. There was a moment, somewhere between tossing out an old suitcase and scrubbing down the guest bathroom, where I looked at her differently. Not as Ashley's sister, not as someone caught in the crossfire, but as a woman who stayed when she could have walked. That night, we sat on the porch with Murphy asleep between us and no sound but the wind slipping through the trees. Alyssa had her feet tucked up beneath her, hoodie sleeves covering her hands. "You ever wonder," she said quietly, "why we love people who don't deserve us?" I thought about that for a second. Because we're told love means enduring pain. But no one ever teaches us the difference between patience and self-destruction. She looked at me, and there it was again, that gaze. Not just kind, honest. I didn't move closer. Neither did she. But something shifted. The space between us didn't feel like distance anymore. It felt like possibility. A few days later, I got a message from Aaron. I hadn't blocked him. I probably should have. But part of me wanted to know what he had to say. Didn't mean for things to happen like that. Thought you should know she's already seeing someone else. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Some people burn bridges. Others set fire to the whole damn shoreline. And she had. But I'd made it to the other side anyway. I didn't think about her much anymore. Ashley, I mean, not in the way you'd expect after a 6-year marriage. No flashbacks, no dreams, no quiet wondering what she was doing. The pain didn't echo like it used to. Now it was just background noise. Like static on an old radio you've learned to tune out. But closure comes in strange forms. 2 weeks after the divorce finalized, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't have answered. But something in me said pick up, Eli. Her voice was dry, scratchy. I could hear the wind through her car window. Ashley. Silence. Then, I saw the house. You painted. Yeah. It looks better now. I didn't answer. She went on, I just thought, maybe we could talk. I leaned against the truck, let the wind fill the pause. What's left to talk about? More silence. Then, I'm not with Aaron anymore. I almost laughed. That's supposed to mean something. No, she admitted. I just thought, maybe you'd want to know. I waited. Let her sit in that awkward truth. She called me not to repair anything, not even to apologize, just to feel relevant again. You hurt me, Ash, I said quietly. And not just by cheating. You made me believe I was the boring one, the burden. You made me think love was something I had to earn from you. She sighed. I didn't know what I was doing. Yes, you did, I cut in. You just didn't care who paid the price. The line went quiet. For a moment, I wondered if she hung up. But then she said something I didn't expect. Alyssa's not like me. That stopped me. I said nothing. She sees you, Ashley added. Don't push her away just because I messed things up. I stared at the skyline, my chest tightening, not from pain, but from the weight of something real finally settling in. I'm not pushing her away, I said. Good, she whispered, because she always deserved better than to be in my shadow. The call ended after that. No goodbye. Just a soft click, like a chapter closing without a final sentence. I stood there a while longer, letting the breeze carry her voice away like smoke through a broken window. Later that night, I told Alyssa. She didn't ask for details. Just placed her hand over mine and said, "You're allowed to start over, Eli." And for the first time in a long time, I believed that. Not just in words, but in the quiet between them. The first time I kissed Alyssa, it wasn't planned. There was no candlelight, no music, no movie playing in the background. It was just a Tuesday. I had just finished fixing the leaking faucet she mentioned offhand last week. She stood in the doorway, watching me dry my hands, her hair tied back, hoodie sleeves pushed up. She smiled, small, honest, without weight. "Thanks," she said. I turned around to grab my coat. "Anytime." And then I stopped, because anytime felt too small a word for what I meant. I didn't want to just fix things around her place. I wanted to be there when things broke, and when they didn't. When it rained, when she laughed, when she didn't feel like saying much at all. So I walked back toward her, took one step, then two. She looked up. We didn't speak. I kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't hesitant either. Just quiet, like exhaling something we'd both been holding for too long. When we pulled apart, she whispered, "I didn't think you'd ever." "I didn't either," I said. But there we were. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't some rebound or desperate grasp at familiarity. It was peace. The rest of the week passed in moments. Coffee on her porch. Grocery runs with inside jokes. Her falling asleep with her head on my chest while Murphy snored at our feet. And then, just like that, life started to feel like life again. Not survival. Not recovery. Not damage control. Just real. One afternoon, I was organizing the garage, clearing out the last of Ashley's forgotten storage bins, when I found something. A box. Small. Wooden. Dusty. No label. Inside, old notes. Birthday cards. A photo strip of me and Ashley at the county fair, years ago, both of us sunburned and laughing like fools. For a second, I froze. Not from pain, just memory. I almost tossed it, but something stopped me. Instead, I walked out back, lit the fire pit, and fed each piece to the flames. One by one, not in anger, in closure. When it was done, I stood there with the smoke curling around me and the heat on my face, thinking about everything I'd lost. And how much more I'd gained. Alyssa stepped outside a few minutes later, wrapped in a blanket, 2 mugs in her hand. She looked at the flames. "That hers?" "Used to be." She handed me a mug. "Not anymore." And we sat, in silence, watching the fire finish what it started. There wasn't a single part of me that wanted to go back, because some endings are just beginnings in disguise. 3 months passed. The leaves began to change, gold, amber, deep crimson, like the world itself wanted to shed what no longer served it. I understood that feeling all too well. The divorce was just a memory now. Ashley moved states away, according to mutual friends. Word was, she tried to start over, but things hadn't gone smoothly. New guy, new town, same habits. I didn't feel joy hearing that, just a strange kind of closure. A reminder that her chaos wasn't mine to manage anymore. I had peace now. Real peace. Not the fake kind where you pretend everything's fine for the sake of keeping a photo on the wall. The house felt like mine again. I repainted the hallways, replaced the curtains, fixed the creaky stair that used to wake her up. Murphy followed me around like a shadow, tail wagging, loyal as ever. And Alyssa? She stayed. Not as a guest. Not as a crutch. But as herself. We didn't rush anything. We didn't need to. Some mornings we'd wake up in separate rooms, just because we liked the space. Other nights, we'd fall asleep on the couch mid-conversation, her hand curled around mine like it had always belonged there. We weren't trying to build something perfect, just something honest. One Sunday morning, we went to the farmer's market. Something small, routine. But halfway through picking apples, she stopped and looked at me, really looked at me. "You seem lighter," she said. "I feel lighter," I answered. Like I finally set something down I didn't realize I was carrying. She smiled. "You've come a long way." I reached for her hand. "Not without you." Later that night, we sat on the porch watching Murphy chase moths under the porch light. A breeze carried the smell of firewood and distant rain. Alyssa leaned her head on my shoulder. "You ever think," she asked, "that maybe some people walk into your life just to break things?" "Yeah," I said. "But maybe others walk in to help rebuild." She looked up at me, her eyes soft, steady. "And which one am I?" I didn't hesitate. You're the second half of the story. She smiled, that slow, private kind of smile you don't fake. And right then, I realized something. Sometimes, the worst betrayal doesn't end you. It reveals what was already broken, and makes space for something better to grow. Stronger, slower, real, and I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living.